Well, the big day is finally here, November 3rd. If you're on the East Coast of the United States, you'll probably be grabbing your coffee in a few hours and heading to the polls. Now, we're going to take a look at what's going on, last-minute preparations, Donald J. Trump, the incumbent, and the Democratic challenger, Joe Biden. We're going to look at some key battleground states to see what's going on. Is there any movement going on there? We're also going to take a look at optics again, a last-minute optics check on the Biden campaign and the Trump campaign. And also we're going to look at what the bet makers are doing right now. What do the odds look like? Is it tightening up for Trump? Is Biden healthy in the bet market still as a heavy favorite? We'll take a look at some of these things in this episode of Election Edge. But firstly, let's take a look at possibly some good news in terms of voter turnout. This is always good news. Good weather projected for most of the country, dry weather for Election Day. The Washington Post here thinks that's going to boost the Biden campaign. Let's take a look at what they're saying, though. Unusually heavy rainfall usually dampens the turnout among less reliable voters, according to a 2007 study. These voters tend to favor the Democratic candidate, and particularly when a Republican is in power. So that's what they're saying there. Now, the key word there is among less reliable voters. And as we've been telling you and showing in past episodes, the Trump base looks incredibly motivated. So in terms of voter reliability, it's possible that the Democrats could have the less reliable voter with the split in the Democratic Party and so forth, a lot of things that we're talking about in a previous episode. So it remains to be seen whether the Washington Post will be proved correct in their analysis here. So we shall see very soon. So let's take another look at some key battleground states. Is there any movement going on in some of these absolutely pivotal swing states? Now, here's an article from the New York Times, last minute projection here. Election at hand, Biden leads Trump in 4 key states, says polls. Well, let's take a look at some of those polls right now. And this is seen as a reliable New York Times Siena College poll. Let's take a closer look at that, though. Which states are they talking about here? Well, there's the 2016 results right there in the left-hand column. In the right-hand column, you can see the Biden projected victory margin there, +6 in Arizona, +3 in Florida and Pennsylvania, +6. In Wisconsin, +11, according to the New York Times Siena College poll. Now, this is very different than the numbers that we're looking at in terms of independent polling. In fact, it's quite different. The numbers we're looking at look very similar to the left-hand column, which is the 2016 result. So it remains to be seen how dependable, how reliable the New York Times and Siena College are here. We talked about the unreliability of mainstream polling, national opinion polls, with our guest Robert Barnes in the previous episode. And here, again, the mainstream media are really going for these sort of stalwart establishment pollsters here. And this isn't exactly what the odds market looks like. In fact, it looks very different. Let's take a look at this. This is the Des Moines Register. This is an absolutely pivotal newspaper here in terms of bellwether trends in the United States elections. This is what they're saying. This can't be good news for the Biden campaign. Iowa poll, Donald Trump takes over lead in Iowa as Joe Biden fades. This really made the headlines. Now, this is a major thing because, a lot of people say as Iowa goes, the nation goes. It's a very diverse, fairly well represented state in terms of politics on both sides. And here we see it's swinging towards Donald Trump. Now, this is in the last minute. Now, we called this last week. We said that Iowa looked like it was breaking red. In terms of the U.S. Senate race there, Senate candidate Ernst, she is also breaking as well. She looks like she's in the ascendancy. So this, in general, this isn't very good news for the Biden campaign. It's not getting a lot of mainstream traction in terms of headlines. Obviously, CNN's not running with this as their lead story, but this is very indicative of the way that the trends are moving, very much like what we've been saying over the past few episodes of Election Edge. So here's the other trend that we mentioned before that is very real, and it's manifesting itself. Shy Trumpers. Hashtag Shy Trumpers. Here's the People's Pundit, and what's he saying? Another tidbit from Wisconsin. Overall, 68 58.9% of voters believe there is a significant number of shy voters who do not want to share that they're voting for Donald Trump. And that's the second highest state yet in that department, specifically suburban voters, 72.7% most likely. And this isn't just confined to Wisconsin. Here's another battleground state pointed out by the People's Pundit. Remember, Michigan posted the highest percentage of voters, 37.6, who say they are uncomfortable being truthful to pollsters. Suburban voters, 20%, were much more likely than rural and urban voters, 14.2% each, to say they are very uncomfortable. So that really feeds into the trend that we were talking about, the shy Trumper trend, where they don't want to disclose that they're voting for Trump, really governed by social desirability pressure. And that's going to throw off mainstream polls. So again, this is another thing, an important X factor, important bit of dark matter that's going to really bode well for the GOP in terms of last-minute analysis of where we think the states are moving on some of these key swing states here. And let's take a look at this. This is the odds checker. This is what they're saying in terms of the betting markets. 2020 U.S. presidential election odds, 66% of wagers this weekend on Trump beating Biden. So, a huge amount of money on the betting markets is all going to Trump. Now, that could be because, well, they were giving decent odds on Trump as well. But really what it signifies is a lot of people are realizing after looking at the numbers, and as these polls like Iowa are coming through, this is a signal to the markets that definitely Trump is on the move. Maybe he was on the move before, but now it's becoming more manifest, more visible. So you can see the betting market is moving in that direction. That's always a really good indicator of where the real information is and where the real money's going. It's usually following the right information. So that's another thing that we're looking at. Let's take a closer look, though, at odds checker in some of these swing states. And these are states that are now approaching even money. In other words, the odds have tightened so much in some of these states that they're really giving nothing, really, in terms of the bookies market here. One of them is Arizona. The other is Georgia, North Carolina. Florida is really tightening up. And amazing, Pennsylvania as well is tightening up very, very close now. So some of these states had very big margins for Biden not so long ago. And now they've completely tightened up for Donald Trump. So again, the market's there. Where's the money moving? Where are the odds tightening towards? And it looks like it's moving in the direction of Trump. Again, more momentum going into Election Day. So we talked a lot earlier about this issue of post-election chaos. This is something that we have to prepare for. This is definitely something that's being signaled by mainstream media. We talked about it with our previous guests as well. This is very real, and what it is, it's about constructing a narrative that somehow, in the event that Donald Trump wins, that the election was stolen from Joe Biden, hence the massive poll projections giving him these giant leads for the last couple of months. That does plant the idea in the general public's head, especially Democratic voters, that he was the presumptive winner and that there's no way that Donald Trump could have pulled off an upset with that massive poll leads and projections that were going in Biden's favor. Now, even though the exact same thing happened in 2016, they did the same thing. They overestimated Hillary Clinton's lead. And then at the end, when Trump won, the shock and the horror, how could this have possibly happened? The election was stolen from the Democrats. And in the case of 2016, the Russians stole it from the Democrats. So that was how the narrative was constructed. Now, let's take a look at this. This is Wolf Blitzer from CNN. And look at what he's saying. This is interesting. He's saying, I never thought I would see so many buildings here in the nation's capital boarded up on the eve of a presidential election in anticipation of possible unrest. And it's not just in D.C., it's happening in New York, it's happening in Los Angeles, and elsewhere around the country. So sad, says Wolf Blitzer. And what's incredible about this comment is that CNN is the network that has been fanning the flames of rioting for pretty much every major event. Back in 2016, after the election, they were also on board with the rioting mobs, and again, post-George Floyd, CNN had made that a major issue, and they're running it 24/7, seeming to take the side of the protesters. So here we have Wolf Blitzer now saying, oh, this is terrible. Let's take a look at this footage. So these are buildings in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. Have a look. They're all being boarded up. And what's incredible about this is that Wolf Blitzer, he's being a little bit disingenuous here. What he's not telling you is the reason they're being boarded up isn't because of people protesting, right-wing militias or anything like this protesting. They're literally boarding up in Democrat-run cities, Democrat-majority cities. They're boarding it up in anticipation of left-wing mobs, basically rioting and looting and all the things that we've seen earlier in the year. So as a seasoned propagandist, Wolf Blitzer has conveniently omitted why they're being boarded up and who they're expecting to be out rioting, and in an attempt to blame everything on Trump. So they're really, again, putting a lot of energy and effort into setting up this post-election narrative of post-election chaos. And here's the main talking point. Take a look at this. The main talking point really is about voter suppression. Here's Bloomberg. Bloomberg is running a full court press in the last couple of days. Here's the headline: what are the odds of a disputed election? Pretty high. So they're already setting the public up to expect, as Mark Zuckerberg and others have as well, to expect that there's not going to be a result called on the night. In other words, we won't be able to count all the late votes because of COVID, and we detailed this in previous episodes. So they're really going, you can see the mainstream media are completely going for it. So they're constructing the narrative right now to prime the public to accept that this is somehow something that could be blamed on Trump, or that could point the finger at the GOP. Again, the election stolen from Biden. So the whole media seems to be geared in this direction. Here's what they're saying here. Based on 100,000 simulations of every presidential election from 1988 to 2016, the chances that the outcome turns on fewer than 10,000 votes in a single state is 4% under the Electoral College system, but only 0.1% under a popular vote. So it's obvious the narrative that's being set up here, very similarly to post-2016, and the narrative is that the Electoral College is somehow not fit for purpose. It's more risky, and there's more of a chance, as you can see here, of a contested election by using the Electoral College system. This is America's constitutional, traditional system that's nationwide for national elections. And so Bloomberg is just trying to dismantle it here. So the activists will be attacking the Electoral College. They'll also be attacking, as they did in 2016, intimidating individual electors who are meant to go and cast their vote on the honor system in winner-take-all states. So that's all going to come under scrutiny, and there's going to be protests, probably expect major street protests, basically to abolish the Electoral College, should Donald Trump win by a similar margin that he did with Hillary Clinton in 2016. So this is something that you should expect. We certainly see the signs already, the signals are being planted already in the media. So it's pretty obvious that this is all part of a coordinated campaign that we discussed and detailed earlier. And also in our coverage at 21st Century Wire, we also talked about this on the UK column news as well. So it's not something that should be a surprise to our viewers, but the media is really priming the public for this. So that's something to look out for. Now here's Joe Biden, and again, the Democratic talking point here, it's voter suppression. That is the main talking point. And so here's Joe Biden stumping at the last minute here, giving a speech to a giant lot of cars, actually. These aren't crowds of people, but this is another one of his car rallies, because it's too risky apparently to have people come to the rally. So again, strangely, it's all about the car. So listen to Joe Biden here, really injecting that talking point of voter suppression.
So we have to vote like we never did before. Every day. Every day is a new reminder of how high the stakes are, of how far the other side will go to try to suppress the turnout, especially here in Philadelphia. So every single vote matters. The power to change this country is literally in your hands. I don't care how hard Donald Trump tries. There is nothing nothing he's going to do to stop this nation from voting, no matter what he tries.
Now, besides the optics at the Biden events and the Biden rallies, there's other people who are holding rallies and campaigning for Joe Biden. One of them is former U.S. President Barack Obama, and much has been made about the fact that Obama is out on the campaign trail stumping for Biden, and one would expect to have massive rallies and football stadiums full because Barack Obama was a very popular president during his two-term tenure in the White House. Now, look closely at what we're going to show you here. We're going to show you a couple of Obama car rallies. So it's the most bizarre thing. We're calling these Obama car rallies. And there's not really a lot of people there, but what there are is, you look at this aerial shot here, you can see that there's a lot of cars parked in a parking lot, and there's kind of a stage that's positioned sort of away from them. So there's not actual people out there cheering. So take a look at this event. I believe this was outside of Philadelphia here, and look closely at it. It looks very much like the kind of fake Biden rally that we showed you in the last episode. And there's just not a lot going on here as people kind of jumping out of their cars. And this particular rally here, this is another one. And listen closely. Whenever he says something that normally you'd get a cheer from the crowds, instead no one's cheering, but they're honking their horns. It is the most bizarre thing. Listen to this.
Now, Donald Trump likes to claim he built this economy. Some people actually give him credit for it. Listen, America created 1.5 million more jobs in the last year of the Obama-Biden administration than in the first 3 years of the Trump-Pence administration. So unemployment was steadily going down during the Obama-Biden presidency, and then he gets elected and it keeps on going down, and suddenly he says, look what I did. Their first 3 years fell short of our last 3. And that was before he could blame the pandemic.
So I don't quite know what to make of this. It's definitely not campaigning as usual. And, I would be worrying if I was, the Democrat support base would be worrying that, this really doesn't pass for a presidential campaign. Not only do you not have the Democratic nominee out campaigning, you've got his surrogates out campaigning more vigorously, not wearing masks, more open to the public, is the most strange thing. It seems like the Democrats have the entire campaign upside down in terms of optics and public relations. So, is this going to translate into votes on November 3rd? This type of configuration that they're trying to the campaign. I mean, that's the question. A lot of people remarked that Hillary Clinton ran the worst presidential campaign in living memory in 2016, and that's why she lost to Donald Trump. Now, you have to ask yourself, is Joe Biden running a better or a worse campaign than Hillary Clinton ran in 2016? A lot of people would say, looking at this and what we saw earlier with the masks and everything, that and the fact that Biden's just not available to the public or hardly available to the press, he might be running a worse campaign than Hillary Clinton. So if that's the case, can he improve on Hillary Clinton's result in 2016? And so it seems like the main Democratic thrust in their whole campaign is, get rid of Trump. And so the question is that going to be enough? This will be a real reckoning for presidential and for U.S. politics in general to see what the result's going to be at the end of this, that if you ran a completely negative campaign that's based on your hate of the opposing candidate, as opposed to running a positive campaign based on your policies and the things that you want to do for the country, which one of those two things is going to prevail on Election Day? That's the big question. So let's make some last-minute preparations to our electoral map here. And a few days ago, we showed you a slightly different scenario. One change, the state of Wisconsin, a very important swing state. That was decided by really a nose hair in 2016. Now, that looks like we didn't see a clear path for the Republicans. It's possible Biden, the Democrats, could edge out Trump in Wisconsin. It wasn't clear enough. It's a dead heat, but we just might give the edge to the Democrats here. So that changes our calculus slightly in terms of our electoral projections. Let's take a look at how it looks now. And this is what we're looking at in terms of our electoral vote scenario. Trump and Biden, Trump with 315 and Joe Biden at 223. So that's how it looks right now this morning. So we'll see if this is indeed how it's going to play out. Certainly if it does, that's very similar, almost identical to the margin, the Electoral College landslide that Donald Trump enjoyed over Hillary Clinton in 2016. So it'll be very interesting if it does actually play out like this. We'll see. We'll see if our calculus, our data, our projections is correct. We might see later tonight. We might see at midnight, West Coast time, or sometime after that, or in the early hours of the morning, or we might have to wait for weeks and months if this gets dragged out in the court. We shall see. It's really up to the Supreme Court. It's up to the various state courts how this is going to play out. So we'll be here to give you hopefully some post-election coverage as well in the coming days. So that'll be interesting. In the meantime, you want to go to our live blog at 21stcenturywired.com. Check out the Election Edge. There I'll be posting. Basil Valentine as well as active there at the live blog, as well as a number of other contributors at 21stcenturywired.com. So that's it. This is where we're at. It's amazing. We've made it this far. No doubt this is going to go down in history as the most unique, the most controversial for sure, and the most surprising perhaps electoral contest in modern history, in U.S. history. So much rides on this election, and few people will contest that. It was just an incredible contest. It's really come down to this. So we'll see what happens. So if you're out there or you're getting ready to go out and vote, I hope you enjoy the experience, and we'll hopefully check back in with you a bit later for some post-election analysis in the coming days. So take care.